platform, which will be launched in a couple of months. This will help us to monitor and assess the effects of the LTNs, the 3 LTNs that have gone in. And then this will lead us to making a decision on whether the changes introduced will be removed or made permanent. The council will review all formal objections and feedback provided, and this will, together with all the comprehensive monitoring, will inform decision making. So in terms of the monitoring that we're carrying out at the moment, this has been quite comprehensive, and this will continue while the LTNs are in. So we look at various things like traffic speed on roads, look at the journey time on the boundary roads, so we can look at the before and after effects. We'll look at the levels of walking and cycling within and through the LTN, look at the bus journey times, look at, if there's been any impact on emergency response times, the air quality, and then the collision data, then look at the non-vehicle use of residential streets, and then we'll also look at the economic impacts, and this will be monitored through business perception services. And we've also got a new landing page on the Streets for People website, which also has this information on a map form, which people can have a look through. So that's the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
I'm going to leave questions. Thank you, officer. Thank you very much. I would like also for the walking and cycling action plan to be given before we take the questions, because that makes more sense, because there's overlap between one and the other. So can I ask, so the questions will come. Can I ask for the working and cycling plan, that's page 31 of the pack, to be done by Bruce Tonbo? Bryce. Sorry. Can I just say what I said at the beginning? Unless there are questions that are put to this panel prior, the audience and the public cannot make any questions to us. Well, we can't take the question. I am not taking any questions from the public.
So when is the next meeting that we can put the questions in?
There are no questions from the public. If you can you wait and allow me to finish talking? Can you allow me to land? Can you wait and allow me to finish? I said that no questions will be taken from the public. What? No, wait and allow me to finish. What I want to say is that there are many questions which the councillors have got to put through the panel. We as councillors...
Before you implemented it.
Can you please leave?
Right.
Can you please leave? I am asking, is there security here? I am going to listen. You are preventing the meeting from proceeding. I think I might have to adjourn this meeting. This meeting is going to have to be adjourned because you are not allowing us to complete the meeting.
You're not allowing us to speak. We can't get around to our best.
Okay, I'm going to stand up because I want you to listen to me. And I think that my presence will be able... I'm trying to explain to you that we have a series of questions that have been fed into us by our constituents in our surgeries. We've got many questions and they have fed them into us. And then we will be asking the panel those questions. And by and large, a lot of the questions that we are going to be asking the panel in this scrutiny meeting, they will fulfill what you have said. I can assure you of that. So if you allow us to continue, I can understand that emotions are running high. I am even frustrated myself. I live in Seven Sisters Ward, and I have got my own frustrations. But we can only rectify them and get good outcomes if we have the questions to the panel and we're able to resolve them. But if the meeting continues like this, I will have to adjourn it. And I don't think that that is going to be a very feasible and best way forward. So I'm asking again, can you allow the officer to complete the presentation, and then we will have the questions, but the questions will not be from the public, because we need to keep the meeting tight, and that is what's happened from before. That is the mandate of this meeting.
Can I just say something on behalf of all of us, just to you, Chair, and not about questions, but just to you. That's fine. We'll listen to you.
Thank you.
But may I just ask that you, all of you, actually talk to us respectfully, because we're also your constituents. That's all we ask. Please, that's all we ask.
I do not believe how, anyway, okay, thank you. Yeah. So can I ask now that the presentation for walking and cycling action plan be done by Bryce Turnbull? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll seek to keep it concise. So just things I want to cover quickly. What is the action plan? What's the strategic fit? Talk a little bit about the draft action plan, the consultation we did on that, the consultation headlines, so what people told us, what we did as a result, and what we're looking to do now in the current funding situation. So the Walk and Cycle Action Plan came out of the Council's adopted transport strategy. And really it's about a borough-wide approach to walking and cycling, and one of the key aims of it is to better target funding, so support us to generate or to bring in more funding towards what we want to deliver. And it supports the Council's strategic aspirations in a number of ways, in terms of making the borough cleaner, greener, fairer, addressing the low levels of physical activity in large parts of the borough, addressing issues with air quality, reducing carbon emissions, providing safe and accessible roads, pavements, and improving connectivity. And it ties into a suite of other council documents, which you'll be familiar with. So just in terms of the background quickly, so we prepared a draft walking and cycling action plan. That was approved by Cabinet in early 2021. That sets out a vision that the borough will have a reputation for being one of the best walking and cycling boroughs, both regionally and nationally, and it seeks to make walking and cycling natural choices for residents. And to support that, it contains policies around active travel, walking, cycling, LTNs, and reallocation of road space. So we had a consultation that was supported by a fairly comprehensive comms and engagement plan. We got a really healthy response in the order of 1,500 responses, I believe. So in terms of consultation headlines, I guess the key thing to note is there was a lot of support for the walk and cycling action plan, including the walk-in policy, the cycling policy, and the LTN policy. There were some comments that we needed to take account of and make changes to the walk and cycling action plan as a result. And they were particularly around barriers to walking and cycling, around public transport and how that ties into walking and cycling. And also people wanted a bit more clarity about how the council would deliver the schemes within the walk and cycling action plan. So we made a number of amendments before the walk and cycling, we made a number of amendments to the draft walk and cycling action plan before we adopted it. That was adopted in March 2022. I guess the headline is that it's a comprehensive long-term strategy to make walking and cycling natural choices for Haringey's residents. And it ties into the Haringey Streets of People initiative, which also encompasses the LTN schemes. I should also note that the council is doing a lot of work around school streets. Whilst this isn't specifically related to walking and cycling, they do help to encourage walking and cycling, particularly around schools. Reducing air pollution around schools, improving safety, reducing carbon emissions. So we've done a lot of good work around school streets, with over 20 school streets launched to date. And this is just to talk about funding quickly. So Walking and Cycling Action Plan is supported by a significant amount of funding. The council committed over £5 million of its own funding for its capital programme towards schemes in that. And we're also seeking to bring in funding from elsewhere to support the delivery of the Walking and Cycling Action Plan. And that's particularly from Transport for London through the borough's local implementation plan. That's all for the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I move on to question and answers with Councillor Hakata? I don't know if you've got any verbal updates to give us prior to the questions that we will be asking you.
No, hopefully we'll come out in the questions.
Okay then, thank you. So, Councillor Hymas, can you please put your question to the panel, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it's great to see so many people engaged in the process of coming up with the LTN schemes. And it was good to speak to some of you outside. On my phone. One of the things that has come up for me is discussions about people who have carers, specifically those who either care for people with disabilities with blue badges or those without. There's concerns that it's taking too long for the exemptions to come through, which has meant the past couple of weeks has been really difficult, particularly as we go back to school, but also about those who travel across Haringey, maybe through the Bounds Green LTN, for example, or through the future West Green Bruce Grove one. And that is then adding extra time onto journeys, which can already be difficult if they are people with caring responsibilities. How has that been addressed through the council, and can you speak a little bit more about how we came up with that exemption scheme in the first place, and if there's any improvements that you think we could be making to it?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Councillor Hunt. And Chair, just wanted to check. I'll have a response to this, but I'm just wondering whether Officer Bryce, who's obviously led on the exemptions scheme, would be able to then come in with further details.
I think that it's possible that they can run concurrent, because I've got some questions also about the exemption scheme.
Yes.
So there will be many questions about that, so you can lead on that.
Okay. So it was one of the sort of driving forces in the creation of the scheme that we would take the concerns and issues and needs of people with disabilities, mobility issues, and their carers very seriously. And from the very start of this process, we had engagement sessions specifically for those cohorts, and set up a disability and carers survey as well, and had constant interaction and communication with individuals and groups and organisations related to that. We also initiated a analysis through an external organisation to look at in detail how exemptions work in schemes across the country, as well as school street schemes, etc. So we could really get a very good understanding, and that external company also enlisted, worked with individuals and organisations from disability organisations, etc., to really grind down into as much detail as possible. Now, our understanding, and I believe, most other schemes started with very limited exemptions. We're talking across London and the country. So historically, in the last sort of 2 years, a lot of schemes would go in with essentially just exemptions to emergency services, for instance. And then as they bedded in, they've then included additional exemptions. So we decided that we would begin our scheme, having looked at that, with the assurance that people who may be exempt, who possibly should have an exemption, were able to get an exemption before the scheme went live. Now, I understand that there have been issues with some of the processing and some of the communication there. And like I say, I think we are trailblazers in this. We are the only borough that I know of that has started a scheme with such a comprehensive exemptions policy. So most have not. And we believe that that was the right decision. But I think there are, obviously, with anything like this, it is a first. There will be areas where it will need improvement and sometimes rapidly. However, this is an experimental scheme. So the way that the exemptions work themselves is part of the assessment and analysis and will be changed and tweaked as is needed. But, you know, where there are, what I will say is, I mean, obviously it's, you know, it's important that, you know, as many people who could face obstacles based on this because of a disability or mobility issue are helped as much as possible so that that isn't the case. And obviously we're very much, you know, wherever they are there, we want to rectify that as quickly as possible. I think I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Bryce, in terms of the process.
Thank you, Councillor. I think you've adequately captured all the key themes. We've taken a different approach to most other boroughs when it comes to LTNs and exemptions. We've done a significant amount of engagement, particularly around exemptions policy. The council made a commitment not to implement the LTNs until an exemptions approach was agreed and in place. That's what we have done. The approach may not be perfect. We're still receiving a lot of feedback, which we're actively considering, but I think it's clear to see it's the most comprehensive approach currently adopted across London. We really have taken the lead on this. I think that's something that we should be kind of celebrated for. We've been really active in this space and also pushing neighbouring boroughs to go as far as possible as well, and to address some of these cross-borough impacts where you've got LTNs like Bounds Green, which sits on the border of 2 different boroughs. So we've looked to be active in that space as well.
I can put a question to both Mike and yourself. I consider myself as a kind of guinea pig for the LTNs and the exemptions because I'm a blue badge holder and there's 2 blue badges in my home. However, I have found the process quite onerous because the visibility in relation to the amount of information that went out to blue badge holders was not sufficient because I didn't receive it. Then after that, I tried on the website to access the link in relation to go for the exemption, and I couldn't access it. It was covert. It wasn't overtly there for you to see. So I had to phone up, and I've shared this with Mike. I had to phone up the officers within the council for them to navigate me through the page. Eventually, when I got through the page, there's a thing, when you pay a PCN, you get an automated response that comes back and says, this is your reference number. That didn't happen with the exemption. Lo and behold, they said that I did not qualify for the exemption. And the reason being was because the ward boundaries have changed. So the ward I thought I was in, I'm actually not in. And so now they've said that I have to do the whole process again. So that's why I refer to myself as the guinea pig, the first runner. Now, if I'm experiencing that, and I would consider myself a very educated woman, and I couldn't get through the website, how are we going to make it different for people to actually access that exemption and they don't have to go through the rigmarole of this? So there are things, and I think that I have discussed that also with Councillor Ali. So we have to do something, and he had some suggestions which I will ask him to come into now.
Thank you, Chair. Just on following from the Chair's points, I think in terms of the blue badge exemptions, one of the things that I'm concerned about in relation to Councillor Holmes' question as well as carers. So most carers in this borough are overwhelmingly women. They're from ethnic minority backgrounds, and although they don't own cars, they often car share and they carpool, and they attend different sites across the borough. And some actually don't live in the borough; they might live in a neighbouring borough, but their care provider might work in several boroughs. So one of the things I've informally mentioned to Councillor Carter, and the Chair we spoke about this earlier, is what are we doing to have a conversation with the carers ahead of the implementation of the the next coming LTN. We've already got St Anne's in place, we have Bounds Green in place, but there's a much larger one coming in 3 weeks' time. And I think that kind of proactivity, things like writing to all blue badge holders in the borough to say, if you live within the LTN area, you may be entitled to a exemption, and something very user-friendly. This is how you apply, this is the sort of steps, and if there's an issue, there's a direct line, there's a direct email. I think that element of sort of, those kind of sort of very small fixes would really save a lot of people a lot of sort of distress, and I think so that's really quite concerning, I think, to a lot of people in my ward in particular, but also, I'm sure, for the rest of the borough.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mark Stevens, Assistant Director of Direct Services. So, as Bryce was saying earlier on, we've got Simi Shah, who's been responsible for implementation of the LTNs. She's picking up in the background a lot of the conversations going on this evening. And what she said is that we've actually got a draft communication which we're looking to finalise soon and send to all blue badge holders across the council, informing them of what exemptions are available and how to apply. So we're picking up on the feedback that you just described, making sure we've got an improved process. We've also got a direct phone line that people can actually ring, asking for help to complete the application, and the customer services team are actually offering face-to-face contact as well to actually resolve those issues. But as Bryce was saying, this is a learning process for us. We have been at the forefront in terms of establishing the exemptions criteria and applications process. Our apologies that it might not be working as smoothly as we'd want it to, but the intention is to make sure that by the time we get to Bruce Cove West Green, we've got a much tighter configuration in place.
Okay.
That's really nice. This is patronising bullshit.
We are coming on the NHS.
Can I please remind you of what I said?
We are serving the NHS. You guys cannot answer me one question. They nearly got killed kids because of you guys. The zebra crossing. No, you can look at me now. Well, we know because we said the NHS. What is it? So
what's she saying about the NHS? Councillor Hymers.
Perhaps I could ask. Could I ask then about? Could I ask about safe? Perhaps we could ask about. But can we ask about safety? When implementing the schemes, what steps have been taken to increase and improve road safety ahead of it being implemented, and what evidence is there from other schemes, for example, about the impact of LTNs on safety of pedestrians, commuters, cyclists, and drivers?
Council, can you please, I'm asking you, we really need to get through the meeting. I can hear what you are saying, and I work for the NHS. I've been working for the NHS for 30 years. So please, we are trying to fix a system that we are attempting. And the only way that can happen is through conversation. Okay, so thank you very much in advance. Councillor Wallace? No, I'm not. Councillor Wallace, did you want to say something?
Sorry, Chair. Oh, hi. Right, yeah, I just want a question to either one of you that can answer. On Saturday, I actually live in one of the streets that has been affected, and I actually just did a straw poll and asked the emergency services you know, how they were finding it. Now they'd come into the street to do something. I asked the question, how has it been? What's been the impact? And basically they've turned around and she just literally rolled her eyes at me. And she said that there's been a lot of discussions with the council and the issues, and apparently you guys are fully aware of it, but yet they're wondering what is being done to make their job a little bit easier, because what they're saying is that they're coming up against a lot of obstacles and they've still not been remedied for them to reach some of the customers in the areas that are in the LTN at the moment.
Thank you. Mike?
Shall I kick that off? Both Councillor Hymas and Councillor Wallace, very well similar ends of the question, but in terms of Councillor Hymas's question, the detailed designs that were created for this scheme took a painstaking amount of work, looking at turning movements, looking at traffic flows, looking at where there could be issues to do with potential collisions or potential cars backing up. But the overall aim is obviously to reduce road danger and to reduce collisions and to reduce the overall volume of traffic within an area, thereby making it safer. And what we found elsewhere is that, for instance, a metric that is pretty consistent across schemes across the capital is speeding rates decrease massively, because speeding is, well, the theory would be that speeding is generally done by cars that are trying to cut through an area. They're trying to make time. And so once they are no longer in an area, local traffic will generally drive quite slowly. So we are aware that, but with almost every scheme, in fact, I would say with every scheme that has historically come in, there are initial issues with a certain amount of confusion, a certain amount of readjustment, etc., which can mean that at those moments, which is a very short space of time, there could be, increases in some of the things that we actually want to get rid of. But we're talking a very short space of time. If the scheme is working, then what we will achieve is, in the long term, so from very early on in the initial stages to a very long term, is increases in road safety, decreases in collision rates, and increases in the perception of safety for vulnerable road users. In terms of emergency services, we have worked with them from the beginning in constant dialogue. And one of the things that is often put is that these are schemes that are there just to make money. Well, in fact, the reason they're camera enforced and not physical filters on almost every filter is because our officers have had long dialogues with officers from the emergency services, going through all of their data, the journey times to every single address in the area, and where the emergency services have felt that there could be delays. And remember, there is perception and data, and so so we're not talking about perception of delays. We're talking which a driver, for instance, might feel. We're talking about the data from the emergency services themselves about the impacts on their journeys. Once that has been sort of worked out with our officers, that actually they believe, for instance, that there would be a 30-second or 20-second delay to a certain address, then at that point, especially if there are a number of calls to that specific street, then we have sort of agreed and put in a camera enforcement instead of a physical filter.
Can I please remind you? I'm going to stop the meeting. I think at this time, as the chair, I'm going to adjourn this meeting for a short while, because I have said repeatedly that the questions will not come from the public, and that is just being overridden. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting for a while. Thank you.
not get.
Can we please leave for a while, please? I'm adjourning this meeting, even if it's for 15 minutes.
Can councillors and officers follow me, please, to another meeting room?